What happens when Hollywood's most legendary action hero meets television's most controversial talk show host? You won't believe what unfolds when Harrison Ford sits down with Joy Behar for what was supposed to be a promotional appearance that turned into an absolute television meltdown. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a complete breakdown that had producers scrambling and security stepping in. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe what unfolds. Last night's episode of The View started innocently enough. Harrison Ford, the 81-year-old icon known for his roles as Han Solo and Indiana Jones, was scheduled to appear alongside the panel to discuss his latest projects and reflect on his legendary career. The audience was buzzing with excitement, expecting the usual lighthearted banter and nostalgic stories from one of cinema's most beloved figures. What they got instead was a masterclass in tension that built from the very first question. Joy Behar, known for her sharp tongue and political commentary, wasted no time diving into controversial territory. As Ford settled into his chair, adjusting his jacket with that familiar stoic expression, Behar leaned forward with a predatory smile that should have served as a warning to everyone watching. "Harrison, you've been in this business for decades," Behar began, her voice carrying an edge that immediately shifted the atmosphere in the studio. "You've seen Hollywood change, but let's talk about how you've changed. Your recent comments about the film industry and certain political figures have raised some eyebrows." Ford's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained measured. "I'm here to talk about my work, Joy. I think people are more interested in hearing about the craft than manufactured controversies." The tension in the room was already palpable as Behar pressed forward, clearly ignoring Ford's attempt to redirect the conversation. "But you can't separate the artist from the person, can you? Especially when that person has such strong opinions about climate change and political leadership. Some people are saying you're just another Hollywood elite lecturing regular Americans." Ford's eyes narrowed slightly, and those watching could see his legendary patience beginning to wear thin. "I've never lectured anyone. I've expressed concerns about issues that affect all of us. That's called being a responsible citizen." What happened next would become the defining moment of the interview. Instead of acknowledging Ford's response, Behar launched into what can only be described as an ambush. "Well, responsible citizens don't always fly private jets while preaching about carbon footprints, do they? Isn't that a bit hypocritical, Harrison?" The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Ford's composure, maintained through decades of dealing with difficult press situations, finally showed its first real crack. His voice dropped to that dangerous low register that fans of his films would recognize as the calm before the storm. "That's a cheap shot, Joy. And you know it. I've been an environmental advocate for over 30 years. I've put my money where my mouth is, funding conservation efforts around the world. If you want to have a serious conversation about these issues, I'm happy to engage. But if you're just looking for gotcha moments for your highlight reel, maybe we should end this now." The studio fell silent, except for the hum of cameras still rolling. Even the other co-hosts seemed frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let the confrontation play out. Behar, however, seemed to interpret Ford's warning as an invitation to escalate further. "Oh, come on, Harrison. You can dish it out, but you can't take it? You've been criticizing politicians and policies for years. Now someone asks you a legitimate question about your own actions, and you want to run away?" That last comment was the match that lit the fuse. Ford leaned forward in his chair, his famous intensity now fully focused on his host. "Run away? Lady, I've been answering tough questions longer than you've been on television. But there's a difference between journalism and whatever this performance is supposed to be." The word performance hit Behar like a slap. Her face flushed, and her voice rose to match her rising anger. "Performance? This is called holding people accountable, something you Hollywood types aren't used to. You live in your bubble, making millions while telling the rest of us how to live our lives." Ford stood up abruptly, his chair sliding back with enough force to make a scraping sound that the microphones picked up clearly. "I've heard enough. This isn't an interview, it's an attack disguised as journalism. You're not interested in having a conversation. You're interested in creating drama for ratings." "Sit down, Harrison," Behar commanded, her voice taking on an authoritative tone that seemed to surprise even her co-hosts. "We're not finished here. The audacity of the demand sent a ripple of shock through the studio audience. Ford, a man who had stared down movie villains and real-life challenges with equal composure, turned to face Behar directly. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of decades of experience and a lifetime of earned respect. Actually, we are finished. I've been in this business long enough to know the difference between a professional interview and a hit job. This is the latter, and I won't be part of it. Behar wasn't ready to let him go. Rising from her own chair, she pointed an accusatory finger at the legendary actor. So, you're going to storm off when things get a little uncomfortable? What happened to all that tough guy persona? Can't handle a few hard questions? The insult was the final straw. Ford's expression shifted to something his movie audiences had seen countless times. The look of a man who had reached his absolute limit. Hard questions. You haven't asked me a single hard question. You've made accusations, you've twisted facts, and you've shown complete disrespect for someone who came here as your guest. This isn't journalism, Joy. This is tabloid television at its worst. Don't lecture me about journalism, Behar shot back, her voice now echoing through the studio. I've been asking the tough questions while you've been playing pretend for cameras. Ford shook his head, a gesture that conveyed both disappointment and finality. You know what's pretend? This whole setup. You invite someone on your show, then ambush them with personal attacks disguised as questions. That's not courage, Joy. That's cowardice. The word cowardice seemed to hit Behar like a physical blow. Her face contorted with rage as she realized she was losing control of both the interview and the narrative. How dare you? How dare you come on my show and insult me? I'm not insulting you, Ford replied with deadly calm. I'm describing your behavior. There's a difference, though I'm not sure you understand it. By this point, the other co-hosts were exchanging panicked glances, and producers could be seen gesturing frantically from behind the cameras. But the confrontation had taken on a life of its own, with both participants now fully committed to their positions. Behar made one final attempt to regain control. You think you can just walk away from this? You think you're too important to be held accountable? Ford was already removing his microphone, his movements deliberate and final. I think I'm too old to waste my time with people who mistake rudeness for toughness and ambush journalism for courage. This conversation is over. Fine, Behar shouted as Ford began walking toward the exit. Walk away. Show everyone what you really are. Ford paused at the edge of the set, turning back one final time. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had earned his place in Hollywood through talent, professionalism, and decades of treating people with respect. Qualities that were notably absent from the confrontation he was leaving behind. What I really am is someone who knows the difference between a professional interview and a circus act. Good luck with your show, Joy. You're gonna need it. With those words, Harrison Ford walked off the View set, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, speechless co-hosts, and Joy Behar standing alone at her desk, finally understanding that she had just lost a battle with one of Hollywood's most respected figures. The cameras kept rolling as Ford disappeared through the exit, capturing what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked about moments in talk show history.